Hi, my name is Courtney Terry, and this is Arts Alive. My guest today is Angela Manginelli. You are artist, general creator,
yes,
content creator. Like, I have so many hats.
So many hats.
All of them cool and creative.
They are, thankfully.
Yeah, so which most of your creative work is through your art. So art,
business,
work.
Yes, work is for the birds. Creative.
Like art is for them. Like no, work is for the birds. Creative.
Correct. Yes.
Tell me more about kind of just everything.
Yeah. What do I do with that?
Yeah.
So I started Work is for the Birds Creative technically in February of 2023.
Oh, cool.
I went to school for art photography and photojournalism. That's what my degree was in, but I knew when I was doing my degree that I probably would not do photojournalism as a career because I didn't like being told what to photograph.
Fair, yeah,
right.
That was
direction. That's a pretty key piece of that. So while I was in college, I became an orientation leader, and so I had a long and beautiful career in higher ed for about 20 years. During that time, I was taking photos, but not really doing creative pursuits predominantly, and life took some turns, and then I realized like it was time to really get back to that, because when I was a kid, put a coloring book in front of me, put a stack of paper and pens, and I was set. And so for me, I was like, okay, I want to go back to that sort of space. And so I started my own business, and I focus on illustrations and photography and creative writing, do some marketing, again, a lot of hats that I wear.
Yes.
I've had the opportunity since August of 2023 to do all of the kids' content for Crush Magazine as well. So that has been a wonderful, wonderful piece of my work with Work is for the Birds Creative.
And then, the coloring pages in Crush are amazing. And I've seen a couple of your coloring pages at Beerly Brewing.
Yes.
They're out in the community, and they're just so much fun. Like,
thank you.
To see, and I would imagine to color.
They are.
Get on that right away.
They are.
But, and I love how much of it is like animals and kind of what is there. Do you just love animals, or
I do, and I think there's a lot of people that draw people very well, and good for them. But my goal is always to try to do something a little different. So I may try to explore how humans behave, but I want to do it through the lens of animals.
Yes.
Right. So we have some things in common, and then we have a lot of things that are very different. So I like to put animals in unique spaces.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So sometimes I have them working, right? That's what several of my coloring sheets are on, is like, what if animals decided to get jobs? What would that look like? Chaos would ensue, probably.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm not saying they're good at their jobs, but they're getting the jobs. And then the other thing I like to do is I like to swap out iconic movie and music moments and replace the actors and actresses with birds or other sorts of animals.
That's incredible.
And that is super fun.
Like some of your favorites?
Well, so I'm co-hosting trivia with Diana at Mac Market in November.
Okay.
And one of the things for that is I put together the visual round. So there's usually a visual round, and it's 10 images, movies that have music in that moment that I have swapped out the humans for animals. So been working, I just finished it up and sent it to her right before I came over.
Oh, that's super exciting. And their trivia it's I want to say the second Tuesday.
It is the first Tuesday. First Tuesday. We have a lot of good trivia nights in town. It is the first Tuesday at 6 p.m. And I definitely recommend, it's free. I recommend people register in advance on their website because it does tend to fill up.
Yes.
So I'm excited about that.
I went to the Library Foundation hosted trivia a couple months ago,
I was there.
Went, and it's so fun, and I think I don't do a lot of trivia events. I feel like I have some maybe like honestly, it's like, oh, you're a librarian?
And you must know all of the things.
I know, and I'm like, I'm not, that's not, like, I don't know all of the things.
You're like, I am, and also.
Right, I can't deal with the pressure of all of you thinking that I could know these things, but that trivia is super fun.
It's super fun, and I have been going to it for a long time, and since I've been going, I was like, oh, it'd be really cool someday to get to co-host this. So like, dreams are coming true as we speak, which I'm very excited about.
And creating the art for it.
And creating the art for it. And it was one of those things like, my friend told me, she was Kate, she was like, oh, you should do the visual round. So I brought it to Diana and I was like, hey, are you cool with this? She was like, absolutely. And in my mind, I was like, oh, I'll just whip these out, no problem. But they take 4 to 5+ hours per image, because I am trying as much as possible. The goal is when you look at it, you're like, that is that movie.
Yes.
And there's no question about it. Yes. So I try to make it as accurate, is the wallpaper pattern the same as in the movie? And some of the movies, admittedly, are much older, and so it's one of those things where I'm like, they did not have the plethora of information that they have now.
Right.
So you're trying to find wallpaper patterns from a movie in the 80s, and you're like, why isn't no one posting about this?
What? So. Yeah, I feel like maybe on the dark reaches of eBay.
Yes.
Things like that can exist.
Yeah. It's really easy with the work that I do to go down rabbit holes.
Yeah.
Because I like trivia. And I like animals, and I like these movies, and so it's one of those things where I'm like, oh, I didn't know that, and then next thing you know, it's 2 hours later, and I'm like, I need to start drawing. So it can be really easy to
get excited.
Distracted.
Yeah, doing the research, collecting the information, and then the actual product.
Yes.
And then you published a coloring book.
I did. So for a very long time, probably a decade plus, I had been saying, I'm going to write an illustrated kids book. I'm going to do this. And it had just been this, like, not joke, but this long-running sort of thing that I just kept telling people, like, eventually I'm going to do that. When I retire, I'm going to do that. And I was getting ready to sort of do Christmas with a friend, and they have a kid. And so I was like, oh, I have an audience of one that will definitely like this, hopefully. And so I put together What If, which is a career exploration coloring book.
Yep.
And I put it together for this one particular child, and both her and her parents liked it, and they encouraged me, hey, you should make this available to other people. So I took the idea that started as a holiday gift, and then I added to it. I added trivia about each of the animals and each of the roles. It's in alphabetical order, so it's 26 different jobs. It's an aardvark that's an astronaut. It's a beaver that's a bellhop, that kind of thing, through the alphabet. And what I wanted to do is try to make it so that if a family member is reading this to a kid, which I know usually they get hooked. They're like, ooh, I like this book, read it to me every night. And I memorized this, Good Night Moon, I've got that one memorized. So I wanted to make something that kids of all ages could appreciate. And it can the kid can grow into the book. You don't have to give them all the info at the beginning. Might be a bit overwhelming. But there's something in there that they can take and hopefully learn something about animals that are not necessarily the most common or represented, and then also learn about jobs that they may not even have on their radar.
Yeah.
Right? Because when I was a kid, it was like, oh, are you going to be a firefighter or a ballerina or, a teacher? And those are all great jobs.
Yes.
People definitely should do those jobs. But not everyone can do those jobs.
Right.
So I wanted to kind of highlight some careers that are not normally highlighted in kids' books. So.
And you try to be like, I know this animal is usually a desert animal, but I'm going to make it a marine biologist.
Exactly. Yeah.
Nice.
Exactly.
Well, it's that fun, that kind of silly thing that also fosters so much creativity. You can imagine, what would an aardvark do if he was an astronaut? And,
I'd love to see that.
Right? It's that kind of thing. Yeah, where you can start those conversations, and it just becomes a whole, fun family art and reading.
Absolutely. I mean, that is my goal, is to make it something that no matter if it's a grandparent reading to their grandkid or, a parent, whatever, that they can look at it and go, oh, I didn't know that. And kind of put that in the back of their head. And then maybe sometime, I don't know, they see a lemur and they're like, did you know? Da-da-da-da-da. I grew up watching a lot of Jeopardy as a kid. And so I think, again, just trivia, like trivial facts, I really enjoy. Man. So
Alec Trebek has to know.
I drew Alex Trebek as a penguin, and on his birthday, I posted it and I tagged Jeopardy!
Yes.
And they responded. They were like, "This is amazing." And I like screamed at my husband. I was like, "Jeopardy! Knows I exist!" You know, I mean, it was one of those like, "This is amazing."
Oh my goodness.
So, yeah, to me, it's one of the two coolest like social media moments. The other one was I did a cover of the Beastie Boys' Hello Nasty, and I replaced the Beastie Boys with birds.
Yes.
And I tagged the original creator of the album cover, and he was like, he goes by @Billions on Instagram, and he was like, "This is wonderful."
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
The perfect
feedback. It was one of those things where I was like, and I always, in all of the things that I'm doing in the pop culture area, I give credit where credit is due, right? Like, I know I am taking someone's pre-existing idea and I'm putting my own spin on it. And so I always want to like shout out the original photographer, the original designer, you know, and make sure that people, if they don't know about the original work, make it really easy for them to go check that out as well. And also do it in like a tongue-in-cheek sort of humorous parody kind of way.
Yes.
So.
Well, and especially for things like, it would be like, oh, you didn't, like, you reached out to and I was like, no, you reached out to the album artist because that's a job that people have, a really cool job. And like, yeah, like, sure, everybody knows who the Beastie Boys are.
Right, yeah.
But like,
if not, you definitely should, by the way.
The internet is mostly free for all of us.
Add it to your list.
But yeah, but also be going straight to that original artist, and it, like, because a lot of times those people aren't the ones that are credited very much.
Absolutely.
Especially.
And I wanted to, there are so many, a lot of the movies and albums that I have switched out, you know, from the original to sort of my variety, they were formative pieces of my childhood or of my life, you know? And so I wanted to, as much as possible, just like make sure that people know, hey, if for some reason you missed She's So Unusual by Cyndi Lauper, like, hey, go check it out. Also, did you know that Annie Leibovitz was the photographer? You know, that kind of thing.
No, I didn't.
See?
Oh my goodness.
I could nerd out on that album cover a lot. Again, went down a rabbit hole.
Yes. Well, and that's what I feel like there's some pop culture is full of those kind of.
Yes.
I just found out today there's a reference in the Michael Jackson song Smooth Criminal.
Okay.
Where it's like, Annie, are you okay? Are you okay, Annie?
Yes.
And that's actually from the CPR classes at the time. The model that they used was called Recessa Annie. Granted, like, fact check everything on the internet.
But that's amazing.
But, right? And it was like, that wasn't going to be a part of my day. And now it's a part of my,
now it's part of my day, and I'm going to take it home, and I'm going to tell everybody. Yes. Do you remember the show Pop-Up Video?
Oh, yes.
Back in the day?
Yes.
Like, I loved that show because it was like, oh, music, one of my favorite things.
Yes.
Mixed with random trivia.
It's
all coming together,
you know? Behind the scenes. So what are you working on now in your creative, artistic life?
That is a great question.
Yeah, you can have 1 minute to answer.
All right. I'm hosting trivia, as we mentioned at Mac Market. I am doing First Fridays at Social Goods in Newburgh that I just did a coloring sheet for. So we're going to be kicking off the new coloring sheet for them there. I'm also working on What If Volume 2. And I'm sure there's a lot of other things, but those are like the main ones that come to mind.
The plates that are immediately spinning.
Oh, I'm teaching a bunch of classes for Parks and Rec as well. So check out the guide, and you can see all of my stuff is in the art section.
Cool. Well, and I know you have the improv classes
doing
as well.
Improv for introverts. Extroverts are welcome as well.
Oh, thank you.
Exactly. As an extrovert, I got to make sure we're there. I'm also doing Living a Creative Life and kind of thinking about how you can incorporate creativity into your daily functions more.
Oh, cool.
And then I'm also teaching a photography composition class.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's what's on the roster for the rest of this year, and then next year I'm going to hopefully add a couple more.
Goodness. Well, and that's on the City of McMinnville website,
exactly.
Parks and Recreation
Yes,
Guide.
Stay tuned.
Yes. Angela, thank you so much
thank
for this
conversation.
This
was
been
amazing.
Wonderful.
It went by really quickly.
Yes. Thanks. This is Courtney Terry, and this has been Arts of Life.